Everybody likes a good competitive race. Okay, not everybody. Some people hate that kind of stuff. But when you grow up with 4 boys, you love it. In fact, everything is competition. And when I think of Paul, I think of that immediacy in his writings. He wrote with this immediacy where everything was of vast importance. He only had so much time and he wanted to accomplish so much. And it seems very competitive to most people. In the book of Hebrews, which is one of my all-time favorites, it's a writing to this older church that has kind of gotten this mindset of complacency. They've kind of gotten spiritually lazy, maybe negligent, careless. And he's writing to them saying, wake up, let's get with it. So I don't know if today this sounds like anybody you know, maybe your children, maybe it's you, I don't know, but there's a lot of things that Paul speaks to here. I want to take you first to Hebrews 3:12. It says, take care, brethren, lest there should be in any one of you evil, unbelieving heart, and falling away from the living God, but encourage one another day after day. Hebrews 5:12, he says something similar. By this time, teachers, you need again for someone to teach you elementary principles of the oracles of God. You have come to need milk and not solid food. He's saying that you should be to this level, but you're just not there. You need to come farther. And then in Hebrews 12, he talks about strengthening the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble. Make the path straight. And again, he's just talking about staying the course. Let's get up. Let's be strong. You have the strength, but you're not grasping it. And then we come to Hebrews 12:1-3. This is the culmination of the entire book of Hebrews. I mean, if you could say what he wants his audience to get in this much, this is it. It basically says to endure, to persevere, to run, fight, be alert, be strengthened, don't drift, don't neglect, don't be sluggish, don't take your eternal security for granted. Fight the fight of faith on the basis of Christ's spectacular death, resurrection. I love how he just wants it to ring out to everybody close. But I wonder who that cloud of witnesses is. When I was younger, I used to think, are there actually people up in a cloud like watching down? Well, it's a good question. And when you look at that word, you can read the word witness in Greek a couple different ways. It could either say to the act of seeing something or the act of telling something. And I think in this one, it would be the act of telling. And the reason is because earlier in Hebrews 11, there's a few times, actually 5, where it says the same thing, and it very much is the verb of telling. And so I would say telling, and when you say telling, I see that as a group of witnesses, those who have gone before, they've run the race, they've endured, the saints in heaven. And he lists them earlier in the book, all of them. He lines them up and goes boom, boom, boom. These are the saints, these are the ones. They've all done this. They've set the course and they've finished strong. And that's encouragement to us, the cloud of witnesses. And it could be somebody you know well that's already fought that race and they've done it. In Hebrews 11:4, he's speaking of Abel, and he said, though he is dead, he still speaks. That means a lot to me. You see, it's talking about legacy. It's talking about once you're gone, once you're no longer in this situation, it doesn't necessarily mean death. What are you going to do to continue speaking? And when I'm with my boys and whenever I'm teaching a class, that's my goal, is that I want to give people something that they truly learn and hold on to that continues like the domino effect, to bless those outside of my direct realm. My teaching, my blessing wants to go here and here and here, and through my boys, I want them to always remember these things and what that meant, so that they can instill these values to those who come around them as well. There's two things that he says. He says, one, to throw off things that hinder. And I would call that bulk or weight. You always see when races are slimming down, they want to get it down to nothing. I have a Jeep, and my Jeep is really light. It weighs about 3,300 pounds. And when I'm out four-wheeling, there's other Jeeps, most newer four-door Jeeps that are built weigh like 6,000 pounds. So I'm literally like half the weight. And I drive right up these things that they're just sitting there spinning their tires on. And the majority of the time is because I weigh half as much as they do. And this is kind of race car dynamics. You see this over and over. Throw off a little bit of weight and you'll be more successful. If you don't need it, get rid of it. And so that's the philosophy that Paul's telling us to take as Christians. If there's something in your life that you just don't need, that it doesn't make sense to your overall dynamic of your journey, where you're going, get rid of it. Throw it aside. Then the other thing he talks about is what entangles. And when I think of being tangled up, I think about, my shoelaces tied together, being in a straitjacket, something like that. But can you imagine a racer in track lining up to do the 100-yard dash, and then right next to him there's this guy that has a 100-pound potato sack, and not only that, but it's tied around his arms, and he has to try to run against the runner who's hardly wearing anything. By the way, when this was written, the Romans and the Greeks, when they used to run, they would run naked. That was their desire. They didn't want any clothes to hold them down, balk them down, and impede them. And that's the idea that Paul is saying here, is get rid of everything, down to nakedness. Be so committed that you can get rid of everything that you have that could possibly entangle you or bring you down. And we look at that analogy of the potato sack being tied to us, and we say, well, that's silly. Of course the other guy's going to be more successful in the race. Yet in our spiritual lives, going towards what God wants us in our journey, so often we have the plank in our own eyes. We can't see that we're entangled in hundreds of pounds of potatoes and wrapped around us. Our arms and our legs can't move freely, and we're going through life like this. So today, I challenge you to take a look at where you are spiritually in life. Are you entangled? Are you carrying a heavy load? What can you do to streamline your walk of faith, which should be the most important thing in this lifetime? God bless you and keep you.